Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Knitted Art History, where I'm sitting telling you some art history stories while knitting. But well, as you can see, I'm not sitting nor knitting, so today gonna be a little bit different video because, well, as you can see by the name, we're gonna be talking about the ceramics of Kosiv. So I mentioned these things already a few times during the some of the videos where I talk about Ukrainian art specifically. So yeah, and while it'll be a bit different because, well, I'm going to Kosiv now. So yeah, so I will take you along with me. So I mean, I'm not living even near anywhere near. So I'm in Kiev. Kosiv, it's like western Ukraine. It's like 7 hours from here. So we will try to drive it today with my mom, and we will see. So I will try to share. Maybe I will share something else, something interesting during our little trip. But yeah, I hope you will like it. I hope I will be able to make it interesting. Like, I don't know, because, well, we're specifically going to a famous Kosiv market, so yeah, so I think that I will be able to show a lot of interesting things there for you too. So yeah, so stay tuned. So things didn't really turn out as I expected them to be, and the video won't be like as I expected it to be, but still, at the end of the day, I think it will be kind of like interesting. Well, at least, I will show you some of our Ukrainian landscapes, because we were driving through the northern regions to western regions, so you will be able to see a little bit of what is going on, and again, just to see the landscapes of Ukraine. But a little like spoilers, we still ended up to, well, Kosiv market as it is was not so, to be honest, interesting as I expected it to be, and well, it just, is usual market everywhere else, so I don't know why this one specifically is so popular. Well, back in time, maybe it was unique or something like this, but at this point, to be honest, like, this is as just every other big market in every other, region center, basically. So we have here in Kyiv very similar markets and everything. So, because, I was going to Kosiv to find some special, some specific things in terms of jewelry. I wanted to look at them, but, turned out it's just completely the same thing that I'm doing here also, so nothing really unique, nothing really special. I will be telling you about Kosiv ceramics, so you'll be looking at some kind of landscape, and I will be telling you the history of all of that and how it was going on. Some examples, obviously, I'll be showing you also. And yeah, while on the background, it will be just, again, the landscapes of Ukraine. And with a little, as I said, with little stops, because we managed to get to two interesting places, two castles actually in Lviv region. So I'll be showing you a bit about them, because I think that I will make, well, at least about one of them, I'll make a video on its own. So yeah, so I hope it will be interesting for you. So, pottery of Hutsuls is a bright artistic phenomenon in overall Ukrainian art of like late 18th century, 19th century, and till modern days. In some places it influenced the folk ceramics of neighboring regions also. So Hutsul region is like a historical name, not administrative. It's part of Ivano-Frankivщина, Ivano-Frankivsk region. And the most prominent pottery centers were three towns, like Kosiv, Kuti, and Pistyn, which were famous for their products not only throughout the Hutsul region, but also far beyond its borders. So the most potters lived in Kuti, at the beginning of 19th century. It is believed that there were like at least 63 masters, the least in Kosiv. Nevertheless, it is Kosiv ceramics that are now the most famous. So the formation of home-used Hutsul ceramics actually began as early as the 15th century and continued its development till now. But initially back then, just from like 15th, 18th century, it was, as it was said, like smoked and blackened maiolica with stamped embossed ornaments, stripes, dots, curves, and etc., etc. But before we will continue, we will stop a bit, because I will show you, well, the first interesting place of this video. So this is Підгірці Castle, Підгірський замок. So yeah. So made a little stop. I want to show you actually one of the castles that is very, like, well, I mean, well, not a little bit later. But I mean, obviously, in front of every castle there is some of the monasteries and stuff like this, or a church at least. So I want to show you that. So it's called Church of Blessed Mykola Chernetsky and the New Martyrs of the OHKC, and prior to that it was called the St. Joseph Church. So yeah, so this is, where is my finger? This is the castle. So here we had a little friend joining us. Don't know whose dog is that. Some street dog, stray dog, how to call it, right? Yeah, so our little tour guide. So a nice one. Yeah, so we are, yeah, and here you have the Підгорецький замок. So I'll be telling you about this very briefly, because I believe that, you know, I will make a video on that, because it's a pretty popular place and there's a lot of info about that. The castle was built on the site of the previous estate of the Підгорецьких during the years of 1635-1640 by the order of the crown hetman Stanislav Konecpolski, and the castle acquired its modern appearance after the reconstruction of the 1720s under the Żywiecki, when the third floor was completed, the gate tower was dismantled, and etc. etc. So I think I will make a video about this, because again, there's a lot of information about this castle specifically. So while you're looking at this, I will continue with our Hutsul ceramics. So we stopped at from like 15th, 18th century. So in many villages of Prikarpatia, so this is this region like near Carpathian Mountains, pottery was the main craft, which allowed local craftsmen to quickly develop and acquire their special and unique style. In its infancy, the pottery craft of the Hutsul region, so I mean this is like, you know, the pottery of overall, not the Kosiv one, but overall of Hutsuls, did not stand out from the rest either by forms or special decorations. Then in 19th century, pottery was not only an object of exchange, but also of trade. Pottery did not develop very well in the mountains, precisely because it was impossible to transport their products due to the difficult terrain down to the cities, and also, you know, to take materials there and everything. Therefore, potters who lived in towns and suburbs were the main suppliers of vessels for everyone. They supplied their product to the inhabitants of the mountains, inhabitants of Galician Valley, as we can say, so with some different districts such as Snyatynsky, Kolomynsky, Bukovinsky, and etc. etc. So utensil buyers, there were specific like people like this, wholesalers also, they had their own, so to speak, warehouses in the cities of the named counties, and they imported these dishes also everywhere else. So at the fairs, these people also, they were not only selling these products, but they also concluded agreements for future orders. And Hutsuls used beautifully decorated dishes both as decoration for the home and also in a household and also for church needs. So since the 19th century, as I said, the pottery has moved, the center of pottery has moved to the city of Kosiv. So the art of pottery here is passed down as legacy still, is passed down from generation to generation, and back then it was developed mutually preserving tradition and style. I will stop myself for a second, because as every castle there is also a ghost story here. So in this basement, Stanislav Mateusz Żywiecki, he was one of the 18th century owner of Підгірці, driven by insane jealousy, walled up his young wife in the basement of this castle. So it is said that, so this woman is called now a white lady that is, you know, roaming around this castle. But getting back to our Kosiv ceramics, so the recognizable features, one of like the most recognizable of them, is that these ceramics were made just in 3 colors, so yellow, green, and brown. The second thing also is reflection of Hutsul life, their beliefs and traditional way of life on these products. Third is use of biblical subject and images of saints, churches, and like bell towers and etc. But I want to tell you also about a process, because the process is very interesting. So before starting this project, the clay had to be processed to remove some stones from there, some roots, some lumps, and etc. As a rule, several types of clay were mixed also, which is interesting. Now I will use kind of a bit of authentic Ukrainian words, but you will understand everything. So, already from the beginning of the 19th century, the potters of the Hutsul region used the technique which was called ритування. So basically, to translate it, it's engraving, among other 2 popular techniques. I will name it later.
So the red clay product was covered with white engobe, which was also, for me, I don't know why, but surprisingly brought from the central and eastern regions of Ukraine. So when this white coating dried, the product would be, they started to put the drawing, like scratch the drawing on it. So they're using this technique, рятування. Interesting also, so about whitewash, or this engobe, it was also called whitewash because they were using this the same thing for covering their houses. And just overall, in Ukraine we have this tradition of painting our houses white, like throughout the Ukraine. So this is why it's called also whitewash. So this thing was either grounded by hand or in drums with water, bringing it to the desired thickness. Then it was filtered, and then the product was coated with this. Scratched lines looked very expressive on a white background. They were the outline of the drawing and prevented the ceramic paint from spreading beyond the borders. And also interesting thing is that the Hutzul's craftsmen had a tradition of dating their products, because some of art historians found some icons, I believe, that were they had a date on them, 1811. Starting from this period of time, they're constantly finding products with dating on that. So after this рятування, the most used techniques were ріжкування and фляндрування, that derived from рятування. So Hutzul masters painted with a ріжок filled with червінь, and червінь is a red ochre mixed with glaze. Often this red was rubbed into the carved lines, ритовані лінії, and then if it got on the white engobe, it was carefully corrected. After ритування, so scratching and applying ochre, the product was fired for the first time in a furnace, a special furnace with a pipe. Such a furnace was made, some were making them from refractory bricks, but furnaces made of ordinary stones from the mountains, rivers of the Hutzul region were more common. So the stone frame was plastered inside with a thick layer of clay also, and according to Volodymyr Shukhevich, so he was our ethnographer, teacher, just a public figure, popular. Hutzul masters loaded up to 800 bowls into the furnace, and like other types of vessel among them. So pots were fired, for example, for 10 hours, bowls for 12 up to 18 hours, and etc. So after the first firing, the coating was becoming a bright white color, and this червінь, an expressive red, and the craftsmen then started to decorate the cooled vessels with other colors, green and yellow. So green was made from a quarter of burnt copper and 3/4 of glaze. Over time, they began to buy green ready-made in stores, although modern masters, they say that it's not really true, because they, like masters who continue this tradition of creating ceramics, they say that it is actually difficult to find a beautiful green, and it is the only color that every masters makes themselves. Thus, among themselves, they can even distinguish by the green color who created this or that vessel. After adding more green and yellow colors, the vessel was fired a second and last time. Sometimes the master could have added some, like too much of green and yellow, and then the paint would spread like a little when it was fired. But such blurry effect was not considered a defect, and still is not considered a defect, but rather it was believed to give the products an illusory lightness and also some kind of uniqueness. So this tricolor gamut of products, so this yellow, green, and brown, is as I said, a very distinctive sign of Kosiv ceramics, which is connected with the perception of nature. So yellow symbolizes the sun, green the Carpathian mountains, brown the earth, and etc. etc. Sometimes masters were adding some blue color, but it's pretty rare, mostly just these three colors. And we can say also that, this is kind of like speculation about all of this symbolism and semantics, of all of this, because folk art, like it's very hard to tell in folk art what really some things mean or not. Because, for example, we have such thing with our embroidery, people are searching some codes there and everything, when in reality, girls were just copying beautiful patterns without maybe even thinking what these patterns means or whatever. So same goes here also. This is like, you can take it with some kind of grain of salt, basically, as we can say. About also the form of vessels, so overall they made the forms were similar as to everywhere in Ukraine. However, there were some things that were kind of unique. So, for example, a disc-shaped plaskanti, it's called. So these were made for wine. Dzbanki is already called. Some narrow-necked oil vessels, which were called banki. Some ring-shaped kolachi. A special ceramic form peculiar only to Prikarpatia is large candlesticks for one candle, so-called postavniki, which parishioners gave to the church. And important and defining creative branch of Kosiv potters was the production of painted tiles, which especially flourished in the 1840s and 1870s in the products of the Baranyuki and Bakhmatyuki. So these families, these masters, they and some others also, in the middle of the 19th century, they, thanks to them, the school of Kosiv ceramics arose and developed. So I will again pause myself a bit because here we're getting close to Kosiv, and so this is some fields near. You can see the mountains there on the background, and this is Kosiv. So this is a village. This is the city. Amazingly beautiful, to be honest. Like, I really fell in love with that. And the Kosiv market. So I have a little bit of footage from here. To be honest, again, nothing super interesting. Nothing super, like, again, I expected. I don't know what I expected. I didn't, to be honest, expect a lot. So Kosivska keramika, Kosiv ceramics that we're talking about. So I thought that it will be more and I'll be able to show you more, but well, unfortunately, so as you can see, we have a lot of some embroidered shirts and a lot of so this is what that was modern type of ceramics. So so I didn't really film more because to be honest, there were like nothing more to film, but again, a little bit of Kosiv. So this is where us going back now, and before we'll continue, we will make another stop in another castle. So the next stop before going home will be, oh my god, what is it? Yeah, you can see it. It's Oleski Zamok or Olesko Castle. So I will be like showing a little bit. I filmed something there and I'll be telling you what is that. So this is like one of the oldest castles in Ukraine, first mentioned in historical sources in 1327. So I will be making also a video about this because now it's it's like a museum, works like a museum. There's a very big collection of icons, of some old sculpture, also like wooden sculpture. So we will continue with Kosiv because there's not a lot of time left for me. At the end of the 19th and the beginning of 20th century, ceramic production as a result of economic and social-political conditions suffered a noticeable decline, and in some centers it completely ceased to exist actually. The development of ceramic in post-war period was very difficult. Until 1950s, folk pottery in Kosiv was maintained by the old generation of highly qualified craftsmen, so it was maintained at the expense of small domestic private production. In difficult years, this trade managed to preserve and multiply ancestral crafts to provide the population's demand for pottery products. In the middle of the 20th century, due to concern of the development of folk crafts, measures were taken to revive them, so thus the production of artistic ceramics was resumed in Kute again and later in the city of Kosiv. With the restoration of the Kosiv Art School in 1846, systematic training of professional craftsmen and artists in various types of folk crafts, including ceramics, began. At the beginning of and the second half of the 20th century, thanks to the famous family dynasties of such people as Sovizdranюki, Cviliki, Timyaniki, and also thanks to them, the processes of revival and formation of the pottery industry were taking place in Kosiv. The creativity of the family Sovizdranюki is of a great importance for the cultural heritage of Kosiv, since during the 20th century they created the face basically of Kosiv ceramics. So in 1857, then in Kosiv, a couple Roshchebyuki, they organized like a ceramic workshop, basically, as we can say, in order to preserve the traditions. And in order to do this, they had to teach students. So within 3 years, there were 14 students. I will not name them because will not this last names will not tell you anything. So since the founders of the workshop and teachers were folk craftsmen during its existence, workers imitated the forms and decoration of older established folk pottery. In 1867, this workshop then was reorganized into the Production and Art Association Huculshchina. During the last decades, the traditions of the ornaments of ancient masters have been successfully developed in their original authentic image. In the development of modern KOSIV painted ceramics, two paths can be observed. So the first one is workshop production, which has been preserved since the last century and produces a small batch products such as tiles, some custom-made tableware, etc. The second one is individual, which is gaining momentum and aimed at creativity, at creative nature, and development of private entrepreneurship. In 2014, KOSIV ceramics were nominated for UNESCO's representative lists of the intangible culture heritage of humanity, my god. And finally, on December 12, 2019, KOSIV painted ceramics was included in the UNESCO representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. My god, never can pronounce that. So it's also as with Petrikivska painting, Petrikivsky rozpis. So yeah, so this is basically like a little brief story of KOSIV ceramics. Hope it was interesting for you, and hope it was not very destructive, maybe. So yeah, the next video will be also about decorative arts. Will be secret, a surprise. So hope you find out something new for yourself, something interesting, which is, I'm saying, always most important for me. And see you in the next videos. Bye bye.